This is DeliveranceMinistry.fm VideoCast number 37. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to this episode of DeliveranceMinistry.fm, where we give you proven insights about the demonic realm and deliverance ministry so you can wage spiritual warfare more effectively. This is Dr. Don Ibbotson here once again with my co-host and colleague, Dr. Phyllis Tarbox.
Hey, Don.
How are you today?
Doing good.
We are excited about today's topic. It's we're doing something, and once again, we haven't done a lot of, and we're going to do a series. It's basically a 6-part series that's going to talk about spiritual warfare in light of our God-given temperaments. In other words, how God made us. We're all fearfully and wonderfully made, but we're going to be using, explaining that and hopefully give you a reason why you need to know that. If you know your temperament, you can know how to wage spiritual warfare more effectively.
It's a fascinating topic.
It is, and it's a counseling topic. It's something we do a lot. We do counseling, we do deliverance, and typically we use it more with in the counseling side of things.
Right.
Doing what sort of activities? How do we use this with couples when they come in?
Well, I think it helps them because they help. It begins to unfold how God made them, and so then they can see the different strengths and weaknesses and know how to work better with them. I mean, if you've got control issues in your marriage, or you've got different, love issues, needs not being met, or then this is going to explain a lot of that reason. And I think it helps to give people the eyes of Christ. They can look at their spouse and go, well, that's how they're made. We can work on that, but I'm not going to be offended over it any longer.
Exactly. It helps to know how you're made, and the tool that we use is something called the Arnold Profile System. It's a clinical diagnostic tool with the National Christian Counselors Association. And look, there are different models and different approaches to this out there, and I appreciate that. But we in the NCCA use this Arnold Profile System. And this model, it looks at basically has come up with 5 different temperament types. And we'll talk about those in a moment. But even before we get into that, I want to explain why we're talking about a counseling tool in the context of spiritual warfare and deliverance ministry podcasts. Because the thing that we've come to realize is, we know that there's the enemy of our soul out there. The demonic realm has come to kill, steal, and destroy. And these demon spirits, they see everything that we do, and they hear things that we say. And, I get a kick out of sometimes people say, well, I don't want to say it out loud. I don't want Satan to hear me. And it's like, look, you don't need to worry about that. First of all, these demon spirits that are around, they see you. They observe a lot.
Yeah.
And if you had somebody following you around 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, they would know a lot about you.
Yes,
and the idea is, if you understand your own temperament type, you're going to see and understand better many times of how the demonic realm can package and work different strategies based on a person's different temperament. They don't try to necessarily do the same thing with every person. And so this is where we're hoping it will be useful for you. We're going to do this 6-part series. One today is just kind of an overview about temperaments, and then we're going to look in sessions 2 through 6 at each of the 5 temperament types in a little more depth. And hopefully, as you find yourself in this and hearing maybe yourself, or as you say, your spouse, you might hear some of these things. It will help you to wage spiritual warfare more effectively. And it's probably important to understand that you really can't do a person's temperament by observation. You really need a tool. There's a questionnaire that we administer to help get these temperaments spelled out very clearly. And so if something that might be interest for you in the future, even as you're listening to this, something you want to do in your own personal situation or marriage, you can contact us and we can certainly get you set up with that. But let's start off just with an overview of temperament analysis, or this Arnold Profile System. Let's begin with the definition of temperament. Basically, at the simplest level, it's just how God made us, right? We are fearfully and wonderfully made, uniquely made. And this model looks at a person the way we're made in 3 different areas: inclusion, control, and affection. So inclusion is...
Well, it's how you act in your social settings. It's your surface relationships, people that you're not that close to, maybe people that you work with, that you are socially, have occasions with, and how you make your decisions, your intellectual energies, how you make decisions that govern your life.
All right. It's more right. Inclusion really deals on the social side of things. The next element of the model is control, and that looks at how our need for control, if you like, independence or independence in terms of our interactions and our relationships with people. Do we like to be in charge and in control of a relationship, or are we more dependent on having other people? And it's important to understand that there's kind of a spectrum. It's a low to high. It's not absolute numbers. And obviously, even as we begin this, there's certainly much more information on these temperaments on our website that you can go and find and learn more about the temperaments. So we're just kind of giving you kind of a high level flyby here of these different aspects. But the second element is control. First one is inclusion, or need for control in relationships. And the third area is
affection. It's affection. It's how you express love, and how you and your needs for love, and what that looks like in a relationship.
Right. Do you need a lot of love? Do you express a lot of love and affection to close and personal relationships, or are you more, maybe need or have a lower need for affection, right? And so once again, it's a spectrum. So those are the three different areas: inclusion, control, and affection. And what we find is, and what the model lays out is, that there is essentially 5 different temperament types. And what can complicate it a little bit is you can be a different temperament type in each of the 3 areas. And so the 5 different temperament types are melancholy, supine, sanguine, choleric, and phlegmatic. And we're just going to give you a brief overview of each of those. And as I say, subsequent sessions or podcasts are going to look at each of the temperaments in more detail. But Phyllis, just a short synopsis of someone who is primarily a melancholy temperament. What is that?
Well, they're more of a loner, Don. They're a little bit darker. Sometimes they can be very creative individuals. They think in their head more, but they keep to themselves. They don't need a lot of people around them. They're good with one-on-one.
Loner. I think that's a good operative word. Very much loner types. A second temperament type is what we call a supine temperament. And those people have what we call a lot of indirect behaviors. They're servants. They love to serve. Very indirect behaviors, gentle spirits, and generally expect people to be able to read their minds, to know what they're thinking. So that's the second element. It's supine. The third temperament type is sanguine.
Now they're the cheerleader. They're sunshine on a cloudy day. They know everybody. When they walk into a room. So they're the ones that like to be the center of attention, wear the bright colors. They're the rah-rah people. They're very upbeat, but they can be kind of moody.
Right, and I think that's it. They can have mood swings. That's the things. They can be up, high highs, and kind of low lows. And so that's the sanguine temperament type. The fourth temperament type is what we call the cholerics. And those are primarily choleric in one or more, like of inclusion, control, and affection. The cholerics tend to be your ones who are really good at taking charge. They're the ones who get things done. They can come into a chaotic situation and just get things done. They're very good at doing a bunch of tasks at one time. They tend to be pretty task focused. And so those are key characteristics. And once again, we're just giving, very brief overviews of each of these, and we'll look at each of the temperament types in terms of in a little more depth in some of these other sessions. But the fifth temperament type is what we call the phlegmatic temperament.
Now, this is the one that really frustrates the choleric, because the phlegmatic is the one you just can't control. Nothing ruffles their feathers. Everything rolls off of them like water off a duck. They're very uninvolved in life. And they just sit back, and you really can't motivate them because they have their own path. They are not motivated by others people's promises of rewards or anything else. They just walk to their own beat.
They do. And once again, I think stubbornness and peacemakers, avoiding conflict, those are key generalized characteristics of the phlegmatic type. And so, given these 5 different temperament types, and the fact that everybody's made differently, if we do these Arnold Profile System reports and we get this information in front of us, and you can see in black and white how what your temperament is, or in the case of marriage counseling situations, we do this a lot. You see, marriages, or even in families with parents and children, when you can see what that person's needs are, then, and your own needs, then you can say, well, I need to get these needs met in godly ways, right? Or they don't get met, or they get met in ungodly ways. And if you see them in another person, you can say, hey, this is what my spouse needs. And my experience is many couples, in fact, have very different temperaments. I have a very different temperament than my wife does.
Well, I think that's pretty usual. We'll gravitate to the opposite, right?
I think so. They say opposites attract. And so, when you see it in black and white, when you say, this is what my spouse needs, then you can say, well, or my son or daughter needs, will I choose to meet those needs? And I think it's important to emphasize even at this point, in terms of an overview, that there are no better or worse temperaments.
That's right. And there's no perfect matches either. I mean, right?
Exactly.
I mean, everybody comes in and wants to know, did we pass? Did we get the perfect temperament matchup? And I always laugh at that one. There's no pass or fail with this test. It's got how God made you.
Exactly. And different temperament types can have very successful marriages.
Yes.
People can be, I know some people have the mindset, well, gosh, if I married somebody more like me, I married somebody different, that was the problem.
Work. I don't think that always works.
I don't think that works, because gosh, you're true. There is an opposite attracts.
Sure.
But so that certainly isn't the key to success. And it's important to emphasize that these temperament analysis don't help you to say, are you a good match or a good fit with somebody? They are used. I think the key things to get out of this temperament analysis is that each temperament type is different. What are the characteristics? And there are strengths and weaknesses in each temperament.
Yeah. I'd like to just give a little plug for this thing, because I spent 28 years in corporate America, and we all took those big 300 question tests. Was it Myers-Briggs, Briggs-Myers, that took forever and then they would label you. You are a service-oriented, you are a leader. So when I took this test with you, it seemed so simple and so redundant, and I've never had anything come back that was just so on point. I mean, it was startling to me that it was that on point in so many details in so many areas that helped raise up the weaknesses and really know where the demonic kingdom would try to sabotage you.
Well, I think that's the starting point for this thing, because we want to look at our strengths. What are their strengths? Every temperament type has strengths or things that we do well.
Right.
And we'll talk about that when we look at each of these temperaments individually. There's some real strengths in the melancholy temperament and in the supine. But every temperament has some weaknesses too. Some are very prone to rejection. Some are very passive. They not do a good job of saying what they want or need. Some tend to be just bulldogs. And their temperament strength is they can get things done, but they can, steamroll people. And
exactly.
And the idea is, well, Lord, what are the strengths? Use me to help bless others. But Lord, if there's weaknesses there, the good news is, by the grace of God, we can be transformed.
Right.
And changed. I mean, I had a good friend one time who scored what we would call choleric in control, which means very controlling. It looks like very, can get a lot of things done, likes to be in charge. Now, there's some strengths with that, but one of the weaknesses is this person can tend to steamroll people. But then she shared that the Lord had done a work in her life and said, yes, she was aware and saw that weakness, and she wasn't like that anymore. The Lord had shown her how she can get things done without being a bulldog and without steamrolling people. So that's the purpose. It's like where the weaknesses are, Lord, change me.
Right. And the longer you
transform me.
And the longer you walk with the Lord, a lot of these places he's probably brought up in areas as you've walked with him. But we're just going to lay them out for you so that you're not going to be deceived.
Well, that's it. And that's the beauty of this report. It's in black and white. Some people, and sometimes people are a little surprised to see what there, but then they reflect on it prayerfully and says, yeah, that is true. Or their spouse will validate it. And so when you see the weaknesses, it's like, okay, Lord, change me and transform me into in these areas. And by the grace of God, he will certainly do that. So, but it starts with knowing what these weaknesses are and what these strengths are. So, why is this important? What's the key by temperament? Because the thing that if you know the weaknesses, and there's weaknesses in different areas, the demonic kingdom by observation will see and know kind of our hot buttons. People say the devils know how to push our buttons.
Yeah.
And I think they can see and observe a lot. And people sometimes with very explosive angers, or some other people where the angers go inside, the devils can pick up on that, and they can figure out how to exploit that. So that's the usefulness in terms of spiritual warfare. If you know your weaknesses and you're alert to them, then the demonic kingdom can see it, to see a lot of those too, and that will help us. Even apart from deliverance, moving ahead.
I think any place you shed light, any place you shed the truth, and you have that understanding, then the enemy can't dwell there, right? And so this is just going to expose a lot of that. It's going to bring revelation, help you with your relationships, help you with how you manage your own life. But, because a lot of times, Dawn, you said those button pushers, the sad part is those button pushers usually live with us. And, those devils know how to use our spouses or children against some of those buttons. So we're going to lay that out. So be hopeful.
It is, exactly. And you can see, as diagnosed is half cured if you know those weaknesses. And I think in context, for terms of spiritual warfare, other podcasts that we've done and are doing we'll talk about different elements of spiritual warfare. Of course, one of the big ones, the main ones, and one we focus on is deliverance ministry, is the driving out of spirits. You need to have spirits driven out of our soulish realm. But afterwards, these spirits are going to what?
Try to come back to the house.
Come back from where they came. And that's where the spiritual gift of discerning of spirits is so important. So to kind of, pick up on this or continue on this theme of tactics, I mean, the spirits try to come back to the house, and your temperament type maybe is very prone to rejection, and some temperament types are more prone than others. Then when those thoughts come in that realm of rejection, then you're going to be sensitive to that. Oh, that person doesn't like you, or they didn't say hi to you. Then wouldn't it be helpful to know that when those thoughts start to come and say, hey, that's that spirit of rejection trying to come back upon me.
Yep. And that may be very much a part of your temperament, where in the past where you were easily offended or easily rejected. And that's a lot of the temperaments we're going to explain.
Exactly. And when you know that weakness, then you can be, because if you know it, the devils know it too. And they'll work through your thought life. And let's face, we've talked in other scriptures or other sessions rather about how the mind is the battlefield. And so dealing and capturing these thoughts when they come in is important, and discerning them. And then the element is resisting these spirits, and, things you can do, right? Things to resist these spirits, scriptures to speak, things to declare, things to do. So that's where it can be helpful, right? And I think spiritual warfare is a very general topic, and there's some general things that are always true, but gosh, getting a good handle on the type of tactics that demonic realm is most likely to use on you is going to be helpful. In fact, I'm reminded of a phrase that the late great prophetic man of God, John Paul Jackson, I don't know if he coined it or not, but I heard him say it, that a lot of the men in ministry or people in ministry, their downfall was one of gold, gals, or glories. They would succumb, gold, gals, or glory. They would succumb to to greed, or to sexual temptation, or to the area of pride. And and everybody, some different temperament types are more vulnerable in each of these different areas. And so and I'm sure there's others too, but that's how it works. And so that's why we really believe that the series on trying to link temperament types to specifics of spiritual warfare, we believe it's going to be very valuable for you. And like I say, we're just giving you an overview of these temperaments. There's much more information on our website. You can look under the counseling services about how God made us. It's one of the tabs there that talks about the different temperaments. And as I say, when we do administer these Arnold profile systems, we do the reports. We've done them for people in our offices here in Tampa and Clearwater and Temple Terrace. We do them online over the internet with people, and so we can do that, and it's extremely valuable. But once again, it's just to expand it more into specific elements of spiritual warfare. We think it's very helpful for people. Will be helpful for people.
And when you bring couples in, like Don had mentioned before, and you put their temperaments side by side, it's just telling of how those temperaments are going to have clashes, or the enemy is going to try to get in there to wedge it. I mean, the enemy hates marriage, so he's always trying to get that breach in there where he can start to send in the salvos to separate. So that it will always help for marriages. And then with children too, because, parents spend an awful lot of time trying to figure out how to get their children motivated with rewards. And you can just burn out on some of these temperaments if it's not going to work, because they're not moved by promise of reward or threat. So this will really give you a clear direction on how to go and how to make your life a lot easier.
Absolutely. Well, like I say, we've just set the stage here for the next series of podcasts. The next time we speak, we will talk about melancholy temperament. But I guess kind of in closing, I just like to emphasize for me personally that it's the whole idea of temperament analysis in counseling situations has always been helpful. It's a wonderful tool that Drs. Richard and Phyllis Arno with the NCCA have come up with, the temperaments types. It's extremely helpful in counseling, and it's an area where we're moving into with people and saying, okay, taking your temperaments, what's the tactics or the schemes of the enemy to come? And that's what we want to share with you in these sessions. So we're excited about it. So stay tuned. We really think you're going to learn a lot. Any final thoughts or takeaways that you would have for folks?
I think this is a little different than some of the church models that have been out there too, Don. A lot of times they'll come in and they'll tell me that they were labeled that I am a melancholy or I am a sanguine. And this breaks it down to be much It's a lot more
Finer
detailed.
tuned, right?
Yeah. And it gives you in all areas, because you could be one way at home and be completely different when you're in a social setting, and sit there and say, why can't I be like I am at home when I'm out in the social settings? Well, because you're not made the same in all areas of inclusion, control, and affection. And this has shed light, and really, I really think it just frees up a lot of people. It also takes away that comparison stuff that goes on. I wish I could be more like her, or I wish I wasn't so moody. And when you understand how God made you, then you have some, boots to the ground on things to work with here. And so we're not going to label you. You're not going to be labeled. But it's going to give you a plan on how to really work with how you were made.
Well, and that's it. And I think obviously everybody needs to get to the point where we get content in our own skin. I mean, if we get to where we always wish, well, God, why did you make me like this? It's like at some point you're at a point of acceptance. It's like, well, this is the temperament. This is how you made me.
Right.
God. You've got a plan for me, and with a plan and the vision and even the giftings and the work he has for you, many times will be in line with your temperament. There's certain temperament types geared towards different types of work. And so, yes, that can absolutely be helpful. But being content, knowing how God made you, and that can be important, certainly. So we hope you've enjoyed this podcast. As I say, this first of a 6-part series. We'd love to hear from you. This podcast, deliveranceministry.fm, of course, is hosted it's actually on our website, but it's hosted on iTunes as well. You can go to iTunes and look for us, deliveranceministry.fm. Would very much appreciate it if you would leave a nice review for us. Go to our website. We've got andbcounseling.com, and we've got the Academy website, which is andbacademy.com. Talks about our training packages, our training services, counseling degree, and deliverance ministry training programs that we have there. On either one of those, you can sign up for our free resource library. We have a lot of podcasts. Apart from this, we have articles, slide shares, YouTube videos, and they're yours free. We just collect your email, and you have access to those, literally hundreds of those, and we'll also send you an email every time we release new content. So we hope you will sign up for that. We have a Warrior Partners page. We've had people just in the past wanted, how can I help? How can I help with your ministry? Believe in what you're doing. We set up a Warrior Partners page, and it's on the Counseling Center website, andbcounseling.com. Look for it. Opportunity for one-time and monthly gifts to help support what we do. It's on the top bar. It's very easy to see. We use it to scholarship people who might need deliverance. We also use it to invest in resources in producing materials to train and equip believers in the ministry of deliverance. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. We enjoyed doing them for you. As always, please keep in touch with us. Let us know of other topics that you'd like to have us do, and stay tuned. We'll be out very shortly with a new one. Thank you, and God bless you.